Well folks, I'm back out here in Hen Grove. You can already tell what I'm watching today. Twice, Spidey has been rebooted on the silver screen. Now Tom Holland is coming back to reprise his role as Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And obviously we're getting Robert Downey Jr. guest starring as Tony Stark Iron Man. And we've even got Jon Favreau reprising his role as Happy Hogan. I'm really hoping this is not going to be another origin story because, like Batman's origin being told on the big screen, it's kind of insulting now. So I'm looking to see what we're going to get with Michael Keaton as the Vulture. Now I've been hearing reports that his character is kind of a throwaway villain. I'm hoping that's not the case because I know this is going to be obviously expanding more on Parker's story from how he debuted during Civil War, which was awesome, by the way. But, you know, this is the third time Spidey's being done, and when I say third time, it's a third continuity that's being done for the silver screen, so I'm hoping this is going to be the last time he's rebooted for a while, because, I don't know. But in 2 hours, we'll find out if this Spider-Man is just as spectacular as the other incarnations. In 2 hours, you'll know. MJ Knight out. Okay, and welcome to the spoiler version of the review. And as per norm, I'll give you 5 seconds just to click off if you came into this thinking this was spoiler-free. Okay, we're good. I'm going to get into writing first, because as good as this movie is, there are a couple of repetitive tropes. I don't want to say cliches, because cliches can be a good thing, you know. Gotta have something a little bit cheesy and give it some charm and what have you, but it goes for the sort of predictable set pattern of the protagonist makes a huge mistake, costing him one of his main assets, arsenals, what have you, then is left to use with his basic wits and basic amenities to what he has to work with to get redemption, and then gets the, you know, the badass kick-ass suit that he had to begin with as a means of saying, hey, you screwed up, you redeemed yourself, you get, you know, you get your main asset back. And it does do that, but that said, it's a kind of thing that is a tried and tested formula, so I'm not going to nitpick on that too much, because one of the main quintessential themes of Spider-Man is the lesson of responsibility, which he highlights in Civil War in the first meeting with Tony Stark, in that when you can do what I do and you don't stop the bad things from happening, yet you could stop the bad things from happening and you end up losing people as a result. And I'm glad that they didn't go through the whole origin yet again of establishing the precedent that Uncle Ben's death is the motivation for him to be Spider-Man and to actually have the sense and moral compass of responsibility. It's you know, that moral compass and sensibility of responsibility is in this movie, but it's not shoved in your face. It's more of a, he realized he's screwed up again, but he does it in a way whereby it's like, I've got the means to take this guy down. You know, why don't I just, you know, I've got a responsibility to do this because Stark is not going to do anything, I will. So that's the only real nitpick I have of the story. The love angle between, Laura Harrier plays Liz, a senior and Parker's love interest, but here's the thing, she really offers nothing to this story. I think if you had taken Liz out, you might lose maybe, say, 5-10 minutes of the movie. It wouldn't have hurt it. Now, vicariously, by the same token, I felt Laura did alright with what she had to work with, and it was a little bit of a bolt out of the blue when it's revealed she's Adrian Toombs' daughter, which I thought, ooh, okay, because they never say what her last name is throughout the movie. It's only when Peter goes to Liz's house to pick her up to go to the party is when you see Michael Keaton, the greatest Batman of them all, as far as I'm concerned. It's that sort of realization that hits him. It's like, oh, I've wandered into the lion's den and I don't know what to do. And, you know, Adrian Toombs has to be the most competent and smartest Spider-Man villain on the silver screen to this day, because he discovers that Peter Parker is Spider-Man so much quicker than even Norman Osborn did some 15 years ago with the first Sam Raimi movie. Now, to give Willem Dafoe his credit in all his craziness, which makes me look normal, if that's even possible, but he lays down the law so quick after hearing, you know, and here's the thing, throughout all the Spider-Man movies, no one ever bothers to try and listen to Peter's voice and then Spider-Man's voice and put two and two together. It's like, do 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 do. It's like light bulb. It's like, you know, Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one and the same. Mind you, you could argue the same thing when you hear Clark Kent and Superman speak. It's like, he doesn't really change his voice too much, and he wears a pair of spectacles as a means of disguise. Whereas Ben Affleck's Batman, voice changer. Need I say more? And what is really great about Michael Keaton's performance as the Vulture and Adrian Toombs is you really feel like the guy has got an axe to grind, because he's swiftly kicked out of the form of employment that he was contracted to, which ties into the first Avengers movie of clearing up all the debris that was left over from the Chitauri, aka the Skrulls. And he feels like he has something to reap the rewards of, because he felt like he was screwed over. And he plays it in such a badass and very understated way. He doesn't shout, you know, he plays everything on the cool and the low. Even the way he's having this this kind of stare down and talk down with Parker, saying, look, you're making things a little bit difficult, however, you saved my daughter. I'm gonna let this slide. And it's just like, give her a good time, but not too much of a good time, because that's my daughter, and you're causing problems for me. I'm gonna let this go. And evidently in in outtakes where he was beating up Tom Holland, he was actually going in very slightly going, I'm Batman, I'm Batman, I'm Batman, I'm Batman. You know, those of us that are young enough to remember the 1989 movie, you know, Michael Keaton was just such a badass as Bat, you know, did everything very calm, very understated, kept his voice, you know, in a much lower register to that of his Bruce Wayne one, didn't try sounding like a 5-year young trying to be a tough guy. I mean, Bale, I love you as Bruce Wayne, I do, but as Bat, no. Just no. But, you know, Keaton, he just plays a heel and an antagonist so well that it's not really a surprise as to why he's getting so much more work now, particularly with, you know, from what I heard that he did as Birdman. And then you see what he did recently as Ray Kroc in The Founder, which, you know, you root for the guy to begin with, but at the end of the movie you hate his guts because of what he did to the McDonald brothers. But here, it's hard to hate him, because he's not really being bad for the sake of. I mean, he's being bad and he does it well, but he's doing this because he's trying to look out for his family and trying to put food on the table. Now, he's still breaking the law. He's still, you know, being a menace to society, but he's kind of a sympathetic villain, but not for the sake of being a sympathetic villain, if that makes any sense. All right. Tom Holland. You know, I'd said in the past that Andrew Garfield was the quintessential Spider-Man, not so much the Peter Parker aspect, because most of us that remember the first, you know, the first 3 Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 3 we don't like to talk about, they know why. But the first 2, especially Spider-Man 2, which is considered probably one of the best superhero sequels ever, you know, Maguire was good as Parker, but so lacking as Spidey. Whereas with Garfield, he nailed it as Spidey, because he actually cracked jokes, yet as Parker, he just felt like he was a little bit douchey. Whereas Tom Holland, everything's balanced. He's the perfect Peter Parker, and he's easily one of the best Spider-Men, if not the best. Now, that's not to narc down Andrew Garfield, because, you know, he did that role justice, even though Amazing 2 was, ugh. You know, when you're able to make something that's worse than Spider-Man 3, you know you've messed up. So, he has the awkward mannerisms that you'd expect of a shy, awkward and not such a socially aware teenager, but as Spidey, he's cracking jokes, he's, you know, he's enjoying the thrill and enjoyable aspects of it, so that I don't have any problems with. I just think he just nailed it, and you get to see how much more technologically sophisticated the suit is, because the suit now has artificial intelligence. Now, some might be a little bit, you know, that's not really part of what Spidey's about, but considering how technologically savvy most of us are here in the 21st century, I see this as a natural progression forward, because Spidey does need assistance, and because this has come from the mind of Tony Stark, with what he has, you know, with regards to Jarvis being the original AI, then his girl Friday. This time he has the voice of Karen, who's voiced by Jennifer Connelly. And Jennifer has a wonderful voiceover delivery. And the two actually, you know, Tom Holland and Jennifer actually have a very good rapport with each other. They really get this sense of, not the sense of Jarvis and Tony Stark, because it was kind of a bickering thing. This, it feels more like Karen is being the mentor, looking out for him, and Peter's, you know, still learning. So that I enjoyed. Alright, I want to talk about Jacob Batalon, who plays Parker's best friend Ned. I don't know if this is a comic book character or something that's created specifically for the movie, but the two, there's a genuine good rapport and chemistry with each other, whereas Peter's a little bit more socially aware and just that little bit more intelligent. That's not to say Ned's stupid or anything, because he's very tech savvy, with, as you see in the 3rd act of the movie, where he acts as Parker's eye in the sky, direct, you know, looking onto as the data sender for where he puts his cell phone in Toombs' car, and trying to get a line of communication set up with Happy. He does his part well. I felt like they could make him maybe just a tiny bit less socially awkward. I just felt like there was enough awkwardness from Tom Holland's perspective. We didn't really need to go and add more to that. But Jacob plays his part well, so I got no issues with that. Then we have Zendaya, hope I pronounced that correctly, as Michelle. Originally, from what I heard, she's supposed to be Parker's love interest, but she's kind of more like a character that she just really doesn't give a damn. And apparently her nickname is MJ. Whether this is meant to be their replacement for Mary Jane Watson, I don't know. But fans, you know, people that are fans of the Spider-Man movies, the cartoon series, and the comic books, like, they're not stupid. I don't know, I just felt that was a bit lazy on their part, because, again, as far as fans of Spider-Man are concerned, it's like, in the world of Spider-Man, there's only one MJ, and that's Mary Jane Watson. So to put that nickname on someone else, it's kind of like, they're not stupid. So, I mean, I enjoyed her performance. You know, it's nice to have that kind of character that's got this very sort of dry wit. But again, that little bit I didn't think that was necessary. Right. Marissa Tomei, a joy to watch. She definitely has the mannerisms and characteristics that we're so familiar with Aunt May, but she's scaled down to a much younger version. And to be, you know, there are some people saying that, oh, you know, why isn't Aunt May in her 70s, 80s? It's like, as long as she plays the part well, who cares, you know? Because they made Aunt May younger with the Sally Fields portrayal with The Amazing Spider-Man 5 years ago, and I absolutely adored what Sally Fields did. She was a much more confrontational version than that of Rosemary Harris's 15 years ago. But, you know, it's Marissa Tomei. What's not to like? And still very nice on the eyes. Know what I mean? Alright. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark Iron Man. I mean, he's RDJ. You know, it's very rare when Robert turns in a bad performance, and considering, you know, this is his 9th year playing the character, and he's one of these guys where, you know, you have the real person, then you have the role. The line between character and actor is so blurred, it's hard to distinguish between the two. And, you know, like I say, he crushed it, as he so usually does. I mean, and again, he was one of the few redeeming, you know, redeeming features of Iron Man 3. We don't like to talk about that movie. But yeah, see, here's the thing. In the trailers, he comes across as a bit of an ass because of the way he acts with Peter, but it's when he has to intervene and actually assist with the rescue of the fairy, and he confronts Peter on the roof, saying, you know, why did you have to sabotage the suit? Why did you have to get involved? I told you not to do this. It's a tough love moment. And whilst on one angle you can sympathise with Parker's perspective in why didn't Stark go after this, at the same time, Stark laid down the guidelines, like, you know, this was done for your own reason. You know, this was done for your own good. So, again, I thought, you know, he turned into good performance, as he so usually does. I was surprised to see Gwyneth Paltrow show up in this, considering it was supposedly rumoured that before Civil War, she said she was done with the Marvel movies. Now, whether or not she had been forwarded some scripts and was impressed with it, or that came into play, I'm inclined to believe it was the latter, because as the song says from Shane McMahon's Titantron theme, money talks. Sad truth, but that's how it works. You know, we get the Shocker shoehorned in. I think that was just done as a means of throwing a bone to the fans, in the sense of, you know, it's like, oh, we referenced something, but it's 2 iterations of the Shocker, but you don't see him in costume. Instead, all you see is Chitauri, you know, modified weapons, but, you know, of Chitauri technology, but it's done as a means of almost like a boxing glove. So, I mean, Matt Gargan is also name-dropped, and they kind of hint to, you know, someone who'd love to see Spidey dead on the outside. And it's one of the only few post-credit scenes where Toomes says, if I knew who he was, he'd be dead already. Now, that leaves a question of to whether Toomes is going to deal with Parker himself, or because of the fact that he was looking out for his daughter, I don't know. So there's a little bit of ambiguity over that one. Stan Lee makes yet another cameo appearance. I find it interesting that he was talking smack with his creation, which I thought, okay, you know, that's cool. Chris Evans is in for the small, like, PSA things, which he does one at the end, but it's more of an outtake, and that's the only other, you know, post-credit scene that's done. So take it for my word on this one, folks. Don't hang around expecting to see something, you know, alluding to the next Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, because there isn't. So just do yourself a favor, don't bother on this occasion, because it's just the prison scene and Steve Rogers at the end just filming the PSA. So just take my word for it. You know, you can wait for the DVD or Blu-ray if you want to, but on this occasion, just don't bother. No, just don't bother. Sound mix is decent, but considering it's Marvel, it's over. Now, to be fair, with Sony, given their string of bad luck with movies lately, they do the sound mix and they do the cinematography as good as anyone, so I'm not going to nitpick with that. Special and visual effects, it's actually one of the best I've seen, but considering it's Marvel overseeing this, what do you expect? You know, I mean, considering this is Marvel's 9th year as a movie studio, and, you know, they know what they're doing by now. I mean, particularly when you look at the first Iron Man movie, you know, they had a budget to work with. Now they command the budgets. So, like I say, they know what they're doing, and it's just a shame that Sony didn't have a clue what they were doing with Amazing 2. But that said, if they had a clue with what they were doing, we would have had Amazing 3 by now. Just saying. I really felt like the kid who played... I'm struggling to find his name here a second. The kid who played Flash, Tony Revolori. If you took him out of the movie, it wouldn't change anything, because his role was just so wasted. Unlike with the last incarnation of Flash Thompson, where he serves as a pivotal role, but he doesn't, because his character actually goes for a transition in actually being an idol of Spider-Man's. This one, he's just an insufferable, arrogant ass that he's there for maybe up until the middle of the movie, and then he's gone. And that really didn't do it for me with him. So, cast-wise for this movie, other than 2 or 3 cast members that really didn't really have enough to do, or just, you know, didn't really need to be there, casting is fine, performances are fine, the score is absolutely decent, but considering this is the same person who did Jurassic World, which is Michael Giacchino, or Giacchino. Comment section below if I've got it wrong, and it's me, so chances are I have, so it is what it is. it's a decent score, and I like how, as the movie's going through its opening credit scene, you can actually hear a very high-quality version of the original Spider-Man theme from 1962, but it sounds like it's performed by a brass orchestra, and I'm like, I like this. Tom Holland kind of does an unintentional reference to the Nostalgia Critic, where at the beginning he's making his very amateurish film of how he got into Civil War. Oh, and I'm going to go with Captain America, and it's like, wow, and I'm going to put on this suit, this is awesome, and it's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I'm like, this is reminding me of Nostalgia Critics' reviews of the Transformer movies. I'm like, did they see that as an inspiration, or did they just straight up copy it? But either way, Doug, hey, you know, if they, you know, have sought inspiration from you, you know, you've contributed to the Spider-Man movie series for that, so hey, good for you. So there's not really a lot I can too much more I can comment on, because I've pretty much covered the general spectrum of this. Again, the writing is a little predictable, but you know, it serves the narrative for what it's looking to do, and you know, I'm not going to begrudge the movie that too much, because it's always good to see a character who realizes when they mess up, but they go out of their way to rectify their mistake. And as we see at the end of the movie, because Parker was supposed to get almost an Iron Man-like type of suit and be unveiled as the next member of the Avengers, but Parker remembers at the beginning of the movie where Stark says, you know, we just need you as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he wants to be an Avenger so bad. At times it's partially annoying, but as the movie progresses, it's almost like, you know what, you actually want to see him get there, but it's weird to see Tony Stark get turned down, which is something he's not so used to, but he, you know, he has a good heart-to-heart with Parker, and, you know, at the end, he's given his suit back, which I thought, you know, that's a nice touch. But the thing that kind of turned it on, that kind of turned the dynamic between Peter and May on its head, is at the end, May finds out Peter is Spider-Man, which I thought, you know, from the movie's perspective, it's definitely a fresh spin, and it's definitely different, because, you know, with the last couple of iterations, May, particularly with the Rosemary Harris version, May's sort of indifferent towards Spidey. But in the second movie, she sees Spider-Man as an inspiration when Peter loses his powers for a small piece of time, which we thought at the time was alluding maybe to the evolution of the Man-Spider, because as we all know from the comics and the 90s animated series, it was leading up to that when Parker's powers were just turning themselves off sometimes at the most inconvenient moments, and then turn themselves back on. But you know, it's just put down to exhaustion. So that, and like I say, she was just sort of, it's like, you know, where's Spidey gone? Because he was an inspiration to people. With the Sally Fields one, you never really kind of saw too much of her opinion of Peter's alter ego, whereas with this one, this is going to be interesting for not only Infinity War Part 1, but it's also going to be interesting for Spider-Man Homecoming 2. So it'll be nice to see where that goes. I basically covered everything with this, you know. Cast members, with the exception of 2 or 3 that just didn't need to be there or just didn't have anything to do, you know. Everyone turned in a good performance. Writing, aside from, again, I was just saying earlier, aside from a couple of repetitive things that I've seen in movies in the last 20 years or so, the writing's fine, but it could have done without the very weak and forced romance angle between Parker and Liz, because it didn't need to be there. Michael Keaton and Tom Holland steal this in spades, easily. I mean, Keaton, I don't know why they said he was a throwaway villain, because maybe they can set him up for, you know, for a future rematch. Because usually the rule of thumb is most supervillains get killed off in the movies, whereas this time it's actually refreshing to see a villain just get, you know, taken away and what have you. So that was refreshing. But yeah, I can totally recommend Spider-Man Homecoming, because it definitely gets an amazing must. You know, there's not really much more that I can say about it. And yeah, this easily makes up for Amazing 2. Hard to think it's been 3 years since that one. But, you know, I was genuinely impressed with it, and I look forward to Infinity Wars Part 1 with Spider-Man returning, and to see Tom Holland reprise his role again for Homecoming 2. The only thing I'm going to say with regards to this Marvel, don't do the Goblin again just yet. We've had the Goblin twice now, 3 times if you count New Goblin from Spider-Man 3. Ugh. And New Goblin, you know, just call him you should have just called him the Hobgoblin, you know? That was just dumb. But yeah, it's an amazing must. You know, and I'm glad that, you know, with my movie viewing experiences in the last 2 months, this has broken the chain of either meh or bleh movie experiences, because The Mummy was okay, but nothing special. The Last Night from Transformers, good lord. You know, when you make Revenge of the Fallen a masterpiece, you know you've messed up. And to come in and see my 6th Spider-Man movie at the theaters, you know, again, it's broken the chain of lackluster movie going experiences. And yeah, if you haven't checked out Spider-Man Homecoming, I strongly recommend you do. And until next time, folks, this is MJ Knight signing off from Real Features, saying good night from the night.